Okay, so this is the third EOC review. You'll make sure you have a calculator and this worksheet and something to write with before we get started. Alright, so I'm just going to go through these examples and kind of refresh your memory. Number one, if you're adding radicals and they're the same radical, like underneath this first one it's the square root of 3 and the second one is the square root of 3, you can add the whole numbers in front of them. So 5 plus 7 is 12, and just leave your square root the same. Don't change it. Don't add 3 plus 3 and get 6. You just add the whole numbers in front and leave the square root the same. Okay, so 5 square root 3 plus 7 square root 3 is 12 square root 3. Let's look at example 2. We're going to start by distributing. So 5 times x is 5x. Bring down my plus. 5 times 3 is 15. There's nothing to distribute here in front of this negative 2x, so I'm just going to bring down a plus negative 2x. And I'm going to bring down my plus 1. Now it's pretty easy. We just combine our like terms. So I can combine my 5x and my negative 2x. And if you're not good with negatives, grab a calculator. 5 plus negative 2 is 3. And leave the x. And I can also combine my whole numbers. 15 plus 1 is 16, and it's positive, so I'm going to put plus 16. So this is your answer for example 2. Example 3 is a lot like 2. It's actually a little bit easier. We're just going to distribute the 8. So 8 times 4 is 32. I'm going to bring that x down. I'm going to distribute again. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to bring that plus down. 8 times 3 is 24. And I'm going to bring my y down. And you can't combine these because that 32 has an x and the 24 has a y. So you can't combine those. So this is just your final answer for example 3. Okay, let's go down to this next part. Number 1, it wants us to plug in the values we know. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to bring this down. I have a negative 4. The next letter is a G, but if you look right here, I know G. G is 2. So I'm going to do 2 to the third. Next up is an H, and again, I know H. H is right there. So I'm going to do 4 squared. Grab your calculator, and I would type it just like how I wrote it. So we're going to type in negative 4, in a parentheses, and 2 to the third, in a parentheses, and 4 squared. And we get negative 512. And that's your answer. Example 2. These lines right here are absolute value. So I'm going to do the absolute value. Instead of x, I know x. X is negative 8. Now here's something that we'll probably do on your EOC. If they ever give you a negative to square or cube or do to the fourth, you need to put it in parentheses. I'm going to bring down my plus 1. Okay, don't worry about typing in the absolute value. Let's just type in what's inside of it. So grab your calculator and type in parentheses, negative 8, close parentheses, squared, plus 1. And you get 65. So the absolute value, 65. Hopefully you remember, but if not, absolute value just means it's always going to be positive. So the absolute value of 65 is just 65. Okay, next up, example 3. I'm going to do square root 1 to the third times a, but I know a is 2 to the fourth, times b, but I know b is 6. I'm going to put 6 squared. I like to just type in what's inside the square root. Don't type the square root. Just type what's inside. So I'm going to type 1 to the third times 2 to the fourth times 6 squared. And that gives me 576. The square root of 576, if you type it in your calculator, is 24. Example 4, I know y. Y is 3.5 minus 4, but I know w. W is 1/2. Again, just type it in your calculator. 3.5 minus 4 times 1/2 is 1.5. Alright, the next portion is on simplifying polynomials. If there's no number in front of this a squared, there's really a 1, so I'm going to put that there. Now we're just combining like terms, so I can combine my a squareds. And you always want to look at the sign in the middle. That's the operation, so I'm adding. So I'm doing 1a squared plus 3a squared. And 1 plus 3 is 4. We're going to leave it an a squared. Next up, let's do our a's. We're going to take this sign with it, so it's really a negative 6a. And again, I'm going to take this sign with it, a negative 5a. So here's what you should type in your calculator. Negative 6, I got that from right there. Your sign is a plus, and negative 5, and I got that from right there. When you type that in your calculator, you get a negative, so I'm going to put a minus, 11. I'm going to bring the a down with it. And last up are my whole numbers, a 1. And again, take the sign with it, so it's really a negative 6. So what you should type in your calculator is 1. I got that from there. My operation is addition. And a negative 6. And I got that from right there. And 1 plus negative 6 is negative 5. Alright, let's do example 2. This one's the same thing, but this time we are subtracting. So I'm going to do my a squareds. So you should type in your calculator 4. I got that from there. My operation is minus 2. And I got that from right there. 4 minus 2 is just 2. I'm going to bring down my a squared. Next up, I'm going to take this sign with it. I'm going to do my a's. So I have a negative 3 and I have a negative 6. So here's what you should type in your calculator. Negative 3. Your operation is minus, and negative 6. When you type that in your calculator, you get a positive 3. So since it's positive, I'm going to put plus. I'm going to put 3a. Next up are my numbers. So I have a negative 6. My operation is a minus, and I got a negative 5. And when you type this in your calculator, you get negative 1. So I'm going to end with a minus 1. Okay, multiplying. You take your first term, this 3x, and I'm going to distribute. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 6 is a positive 18x. So again, I just took my first term and I multiplied it to this x and I multiplied it to this 6. I'm going to do the same thing with a negative 2. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. And then we can combine these x's in the middle. So I'm going to bring down 3x squared. 18 minus 2 is a positive 16. I'm going to bring down minus 12. And the last one, dividing. We're going to take each term up top and divide it by the bottom. So I'm going to start by dividing these. 8 divided by 2 is 4. The rule with exponents is you subtract. So the top I have 2 x's, and on the bottom I have 1. And if I subtract 2 minus 1, I have 1x. Now I'm going to erase this. I'm going to do the same thing with these terms. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X divided by x, if I have an x on top and an x on bottom, they're going to cancel, so the x's go away. I'm going to do it again with my last term. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And if you look, there is no x on top, but there is one on bottom. So I'm going to leave that little x on bottom, okay? Not on bottom of the entire thing, just on the bottom of that negative 2. And that's your answer for number 4. Last one on your worksheet before you try these on your own. Find the perimeter. Perimeter means you add up all the sides. So we're going to take 3x squared, got that from here, plus 2y squared, I got that from here, plus 3x minus 5y squared, I got that from here, plus 6x squared, I got that from here, plus 7y minus 3x squared, and I got that from here. So perimeter means add up all your sides. The only thing left is to combine like terms. So I'm going to look for any more x squareds. I got one there and one here at the end. So in my calculator I'm going to do 3 plus 6, because this is a plus 6 right here, and then minus 3, because it's a minus in front of this 3x squared. So 3 plus 6 minus 3 gives me 6x squared. I'm going to scribble these out because I've used them. Next up is the y squared, and there's another y squared here, so I'm going to combine those. So I'm going to do 2 minus 5, and 2 minus 5 is negative 3, and leave it a y squared. So I use that and that. And last up is nothing, because this is an x and this is a y. So I'm just going to bring those down. So plus 3x plus 7y. And that's your answer. That's as far as we can go. So I want for you to try these multiple choice problems, and I'll check it when I come to your facility.